This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it.
Stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, stop cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
And welcome to it, my friends. It's Monday here on the program. Monday, it certainly is. It feels like a Monday a little bit, doesn't it? Well, sure. It sure does. Monday here, and time to get started on the work week, and so much to do this week. We've got, of course, the primaries here in Michigan tomorrow. All eyes. You heard Todd Corser earlier on the program. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't believe he's going to pull through. But of course, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if Corser and Gamrat or one of them got through, possibly both. I suppose it's possible. I mean, stranger things have happened, right? Stranger things have certainly happened. And we'll keep an eye on that. That's tomorrow, of course. And we'll have a close look at that race. We'll have complete results, but not until Wednesday's program. Bill Gates, believe it or not, the man who has built the world on capitalism, Bill Gates believes that socialism is what's going to save the world. Socialism. Now, here's the guy. Here's the guy who has, become the richest man in the world because of capitalism. And he's got his billions and billions of dollars, of course. And now he thinks that the way for the world to be saved is through socialism. Well, fortunately for him, there's a lot of it to go around. But isn't it interesting that the one mechanism that has lifted more people out of poverty in my life, in any lifetime, in the history of the world, is capitalism? Nobody has gotten wealthier off of capitalism in recent years than Bill Gates. He is the richest man in the world. And now he's the richest man in the world and calling the private sector selfish, while announcing his plan to spend $2 billion of his own wealth on green energy. During an interview with The Atlantic, the Microsoft founder called on fellow billionaires to make the U.S. fossil-free by 2050. Although the term fossil fuels is not accurate anymore, but don't worry about that. Here's what he said. He said, there's no fortune to be made even if you have a new energy source that costs the same as today's and emits no CO2. It will be uncertain compared with what's tried and true and already operating at unbelievable scale and has gone through all the regulatory problems. Without a substantial carbon tax, there is no incentive for innovators or plant buyers to switch. Since World War II, the U.S. government, research and development has defined the state of the art in almost every area. The private sector is in general inept. Really? The climate problem has to be solved in the rich countries. China and the U.S. and Europe have to solve CO2 emissions, and when they do, hopefully they'll make it cheap enough for everyone else. Hopefully. Of course, I'll be dead by then with my billions of dollars, and what do I care? In recent years, China has surged ahead in green energy investment, and has rose from 3 megawatts to 21,000 megawatts, rising 67% between 2013 and 14. All right, we'll get back to Bill Gates and his hypocrisy, mass hypocrisy, in a moment. But first, let's go to Henrietta. She is on the line in Lansing with a comment about Todd Corser. Henrietta, welcome to the program.
I just wonder, did they have a special election for them this year because did they have to pay for a special election?
Yeah, there's
they resigned.
Yes, ma'am. There's extra money being spent. Yes, ma'am.
All right. And do you well, I feel that only they want to get elected so they could pick up where they left off with their Lovebird Act. But do you think that, I don't know, they cost extra money and then they want to get back on so they can pick up where they left off?
Yes. Politicians, you see. And it doesn't matter which side of the aisle they come from. The problem is, they want their jobs back, even though one quit and one was thrown out. And they argue they were forced out unfairly because of their political beliefs, and you can decide what, however, on that. I mean, there are other cases, a Democratic state senator from Detroit shot at his girlfriend's car. He hasn't left the body yet. The other people have done things that are more, more over the line, if you will, and still have their positions. So maybe they have an argument. Maybe they don't. At the end of the day, I guess we'll find out, because there's 8 or 10 people running in each primary in the 80 and 82nd districts.
Well, I'm an older lady, and I just can't see all this. And like you said, politicians, I know it happens all the time, but I'm upset about that because it's costing money. Anyway, thank you for talking to me.
Henrietta, thank you for checking in. Thank you so much. There you have it. You can be just like her, and we encourage you to do so. The phone number is 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Germany's greenhouse emissions, by the way, back to the Bill Gates conversation, at its lowest point since 1990, the UK has seen a decrease of 13.5% over the last 5 years, according to quarterly statistics from the Department of Energy and Climate Change. Yeah. It's the hypocrisy of Bill Gates that I find stunning. I'm a billionaire, and therefore I am so arrogant, I can change the weather. Well, good luck with that. Seriously, good luck with that, changing the weather. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do in this world. I'm not sure that's one of them. But meanwhile, the clock quickly winding down on Michigan. 9 coal-fired power plants here headed to the final stretch of their service. As you know, the 9 plants, 7 owned by consumers, 2 by DTE, will burn their last pieces of coal come April. Within a couple of years, most will be leveled to make way for a new generation of power creation, and maybe Bill Gates will buy us windmills. Maybe he'll buy me a windmill. The only problem is with as much as 9 gigawatts getting yanked out of the Michigan grid over the next few years, there really is no credible plan at this point to replace all that juice. There just isn't. There are some plans to replace the coal plants with natural gas, like the city of Holland is doing. The Holland Board of Public Works' new natural gas-fired plant that will cost around $140 million. Expected to start sending electricity down the lines in December of 2016. However, that's one city in a state of 10 million people. In places like Muskegon, the last of the coal ships will soon be leaving port, never to come back. The last shipment of coal to the BC Cobb Consumers Energy Plant, for example, in Muskegon, scheduled to arrive in just a few days, November 8th. Meanwhile, there are other concerns facing us. A new book by Ted Koppel, the former ABC newsman that was the face of Nightline for many, many years, says our electric grid in America is in deep trouble, and it's vulnerable, very vulnerable, to attack from the Russians and the Chinese. Sooner or later, we're sitting in the dark. And meanwhile, what have we done as a country? Well, we've gone from $10 trillion in debt to $20 trillion in debt. Thank you very much, Barack Obama. 14 after on a Monday.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
People try to put us to down. Talking about my generation. Just because we get around.
All right. Common Sense Hotline sparkling at this hour. If you guys all want to jump in and have a little bit of a conversation about, which I fully encourage. I'll start with Dave in Negaunee on the program. Dave, welcome to the show.
My sound bites aren't going to stop and fail and leave you with dead air. So
well, I appreciate that. Technical issues. All right, I'm going to put a quarter in you. Go.
Well, we're talking about all this alternative energy, but I don't know if you're aware of the controversy in the Upper Michigan area. Garden Peninsula has a bunch of windmills. And all the people out there are outraged, and they got signs saying too close, too often, too noisy, whatever it says. The Delta County Planning Commission has changed the rulings, and they want to make it that you can't put it within 1,640 feet of a non-participating property. So that's 1,640 feet either way. So I guess it's a ballot proposal on Tuesday to be able to basically take away your right to be able to put up a windmill and
how do you feel
make
about
the money
that?
off of it.
How do you feel about them?
Sorry, what?
How do you feel about that pushback, setting them way back?
Well, as a planning commissioner in the county, I agree with putting rules in place that are common sense, like, one and a half times the height of your windmill, so if it falls down, it doesn't hurt anybody else kind of thing. But I think that it's gone from one extreme to the other. If you want to put a windmill up, that's great, even though they're not energy efficient. They operate 30% efficiency or less. They only work when the wind blows.
Which is 21% of the
then you have
time.
concerns by the people. What about the bearings if they go bad, all the noise, the killing of the birds? There's controversy to alternative energy that nobody wants to talk about.
Well, you just did, Dave, and you said it right here on the program, and you're on the planning commission. Why don't you just ban them all together? If they're a waste of money, they're an eyesore, they're noisy, and people don't like them, why don't we just go build them in Massachusetts and Connecticut and the places that people want to beat their chest for them? That's fine. Dave, thanks for checking in. LJ next on the line. LJ, welcome to the program.
Hey, Steve, you were talking about the coal plants being shut down, and that would leave us vulnerable to our enemies. Well, I don't think we have to worry about them. The one enemy that we have to worry about now is our Muslim-in-chief in the White House, who's determined to kill us from the inside. Well,
I mean, he's definitely dramatically changed America, LJ. Thank you for stopping in. I mean, the change has been profound. $20 trillion is the debt he will leave behind, more than $20 trillion. Remember when he said it was un-American to run the American debt up? Yeah. He didn't even, not even comparable. Rick on the line in Eaton Rapids this morning. Rick, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Steve. Hey, one of Obama's campaign promises is about to come true here in Michigan, in that when we have to start buying our electricity from other states, our electric bills are going to skyrocket. And then you turn around and all the new generation plants are probably going to be gas-fired, so residential customers are going to have to compete with the power companies for their natural gas, so that's going to go up, especially with the government doing everything it can to regulate the exploration for natural gas.
You mean there's something to this old thing called supply and demand, and if everybody's demanding the same supply line, that the prices go up? You mean there's actually something to those basic economic principles, Rick?
Yeah, that's something that Bill Gates didn't study in college either, apparently.
Apparently. He just thinks that we should all be socialists and we should build windmills. Of course, that comes from a guy worth, $70 billion. All right, well, the phone lines will remain open for the remainder of the day. If you need to jump in, let us know. 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. I'm going to shift gears now to our good friend Mike Hughes. Mike Hughes on the line, here to talk about television and what's going on this week. Mike, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. And, this is actually an historic day for television.
No, why is that?
Okay, if you sit there, think back to January of 1949, okay? That was the day that CBS introduced a show called The Goldbergs. Ever since, CBS has had a sitcom on Monday nights. I mean, great ones. I Love Lucy. Everybody Loves Raymond. 2.5 Men. MASH. Always great CBS comedies. Starting tonight, the first time that CBS's schedule has no sitcoms on Monday nights.
And I thought it was the year you graduated high school. See, I was confused.
I'll tell you, my family didn't have a TV set in 1949, so I don't feel quite as bad about not seeing the Goldberg.
There you go.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this: the CBS Monday lineup, the new one, is not bad. I mean, it starts with Supergirl. I saw the second episode tonight. The show is supervised by Jeff Johns, a guy, MSU grad who grew up in Detroit area. Supergirl's a good show again. This isn't a great episode tonight, but it's a good one at 8 o'clock. Then Scorpion at 9, then NCIS LA at 10. It's a good lineup, but no sitcoms. No sitcoms on CBS, no sitcoms anywhere else on Monday night. You got to feel a little bit bad about that.
Crazy talk, yeah.
Yeah, and that's because Big Bang Theory now is moving back to its Thursday night spot. The Thursday football games are over on CBS. Bunch of good sitcoms there, but you just got to, at least for a moment, feel bad about it.
Well, there you go. All right, what else you got for me?
Well, first of all, the CBS lineup on Thursdays is a good one. I mean, it's got Big Bang Theory. It's got this Life in Pieces, this new comedy, which is a good one. It's got Life in Angel from Hell, which is not as good, but it brings back Mom at 9 o'clock, and I think this is one of the most underrated shows on TV. I've seen the first episode of the new season. Again, just very, very sharp. Ellen Burstyn from Detroit comes on the show as Allison Janney's grandmother for this episode, which makes her in the show a great-great-grandmother, okay? You don't see many great-great-grandmothers on TV.
Well, that's
but
true.
It's just a good episode of that. And the other interesting thing this week is the one way that Kansas City winning the World Series so fast is good, which is Fox can finally get back to its regular lineup. Pretty good episodes on Tuesday of Grinder and Grandfather, and then on Wednesday, Empire comes back alongside a really awful episode of Rosewood. So at least we got some shows back now. We can forget about baseball, which most of us around here forgot about a long time ago anyway. Get on to something else.
All right, Mike, we got to keep it short today, but that's a pretty good look at the lineup for this week. Thank you, Mike Hughes.
Okay, have a good time. See ya. Bye.
There you have it, Mike Hughes, everybody, and we do have a couple of calls backed up. We'll get to those. 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. We'll be right back.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
Very superstitious. Writings on the wall.
You know, political targeting of your opponents, you know, that's sport at some point, but it also becomes criminal activity, if you go too far. And if for the IRS and for this Department of Justice say there are no crimes, nothing has gone wrong, even though the IRS targeted conservative political groups, opponents of the president. President Obama's IRS was used against his opponents to help him win re-election, no question. And yet nothing is going to happen, at least it seems at this point. Chris Farrell joining us now from Judicial Watch, the director there of research and investigations. Chris, welcome back to the program. I mean, you look at this, I don't know, at some point it's a joke. It's a joke. I mean, why do we have a Justice Department if they don't care about, justice?
Sadly, I could not agree with you more. This is, it's a crime and a cover-up on top of the crime. And it's pervasive. Our Department of Justice is completely compromised, and I mean that from the point of view of this decision concerning Lois Lerner and the IRS, and I mean it in other cases. We brought an extremely sensitive case to the Inspector General of the Department of Justice on an internal matter about Justice Department special agents from a couple of different agencies who were wildly corrupt and endangered the life of a confidential informant. And just this past week, we heard back from them. Nothing here. Not going to pursue it. Going to let it go.
Yeah, nothing to see here. It's startling to say the least. And I don't know, what can we possibly do about it? I mean, here we are. It's been Judicial Watch. You've done your job. You've exposed. You put lights on places that need illumination, to say the least. And yet your frustration must be multiplied now, knowing that nothing of significance appears to be coming from it.
There's two avenues of recourse. One is Congress. If we had real leadership and guts and a spine in Congress, they would be able to simply withhold funding from various agencies and projects. That's one way to kind of grab them by the short hairs, frankly. And the other thing, of course, is that elections, right? Elections have consequences. When you have the sort of leadership that we currently have in this country, in our government, what do you expect?
I mean, I expect at least somebody to be honest. Comey seems to be, the only guy out there that seems to be honest about much of anything. And the Ferguson effect, at least he seems to be somebody. And, of course, he gets a bunch of pushback. But here's the problem. Elections have consequences. And yet we have a president and administration here who's trying to flood the field with illegal aliens, as you well know, which will change the balance of power. And about the time that Texas goes blue, you can write off the republic. It'll be over.
Sadly, I'm left at the point of just being at the point of having to just agree with you and say, yes, you're right. I don't have anything to add. It's just that we are in very, very grave danger.
So what do you do at Judicial Watch to try to change this direction, try to change this topic, try to change the direction of the country? Because, we're going to be at, because of this feckless deal made by the Republicans, the cowardly deal on the budget is going to push us to what, $22 trillion in debt, that Barack Obama has doubled or more than doubled the debt of this nation and saddled the future of this nation with untenable debt. I mean, is there anything that can be done at this point? Some people thought that $20 trillion might be the point of no return. It might be. I don't know. I mean, I'm willing to sell California, but I'm not sure that's the answer.
Hoping it slides into the sea, right?
Well, no, I'd rather sell it. I'd rather sell it first. Yeah. I mean, it must be worth $20 trillion. It must be worth something, right? I mean,
we're going to just keep asking very inconvenient, awkward questions, and keep documenting and embarrassing the corruption and the crazy behavior. That's our goal. The American public won't go down this path uninformed. They'll do it with both eyes wide open, and that's our job.
You know what I think?
Exposing it.
We're on the line with Chris Farrell, the Director of Research and Investigations for Judicial Watch. And I think that, what's I guess, so mind-numbing about all of this is that it's not a single front. It's not like we're doing something crazy at the IRS and other things seem to be pretty well on track. It's like there's crazy stuff going on all over the place. We've got crazy deals being made for windmills that produce energy, 19 or 20% of the time, and we're giving away billions of dollars. We've got crazy deals going on with our foreign policy where we have no idea what's going on. We have this idea that we're going to, give away trillions of dollars to illegal aliens who get better benefits than people that actually live in this country. So every place you look, you see these crazy things going on, and yet people say, like, I'm ready for Hillary. What are you ready for? What are you ready for? Bankruptcy? I don't know. What are you ready for?
Yeah, well, I mean, these are people who have leveraged their position into public power by just continually promising more goodies. And there's the old line that eventually, you run out of other people's money, right?
Well, sure. I guess my question is this, and maybe it's a bit rhetorical, but as a country, have we really become this, ignorant, frankly? And like I said, maybe it's rhetorical, but, somebody has to be able to read something. Somebody has to understand that, things aren't free. There is no such thing as a free lunch. People have to understand that for all of us that are going to work, we can't support everybody that wants to sit home. We can't have handouts for everybody. It's supposed to be a safety net, not a hammock. At least that's my estimation of the world. And yet, here we are with Bill Gates and his $70 billion net worth thing that socialism is going to save the planet. I'm like, really? The richest guy in history tells me...
It just shows you how disconnected he is from reality.
Yeah, the guy that made more money from capitalism, the one thing that's lifted more people out of poverty than any other single thing in the history of of mankind, says socialism is the answer. I mean, and that's how... I don't know. That's how lost we are, I guess, Chris.
20 years ago, right? We watched the collapse of the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact and that sort of velvet revolution that occurred. Thankfully, very few, if any, people killed. It caved in on itself, right? No lessons from history there. None.
Yeah, nothing to learn there. I mean, the fact that it's failed in every country it's ever tried in, and usually it comes at the cost of millions of lives.
Yeah, usually. The butcher always gets paid in that scenario.
Yeah, the butcher always gets paid. There will be pitchforks in the streets, but it won't be for the support of socialism. At some point, it'll be the opposition thereof. And then meanwhile, you've got, let's bring in 100,000, Muslim refugees from countries with no real background check. Let's bring them into the country because everything else is going so swimmingly well. I guess it's just the insanity, Chris, and maybe I was just here to complain a little bit, but I appreciate your time.
Great to be on with you. Thank you very much.
Chris Farrell, the Director of Research and Investigations for Judicial Watch, saying, he just throws his hands in the air at some point, and sadly, so do a lot of us. But I'm reminded every morning when I get up that this is still the greatest nation on earth. and I am not willing to roll over. Do I get tired sometimes? Do I get a headache sometimes? Yes. But I'm still willing to fight for what I believe is the greatest government in the history of governments, the greatest nation in the history of nations, and for you, the listener, I'm willing to fight every day. So stick with me. We can make this work. I say stand up, America. Stand up. 41 after.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
All right, back to the phone lines real quickly on the hotline. Sam is checking in this Monday. Sam, welcome to it.
Hey, Steve. I wanted to address the global warming and the direction for the country and clean energy issue.
Okay, go.
Well, see, our real problem is the industrial revolution. And I think some of God's favorite words would be recyclable and biodegradable. And so the people running the show, they keep serving us oil, fuel, diesel, petrol. Now, the key to this is the guy who created all this electrical stuff, Edison. Now, Edison apparently devised a magnet system in Dearborn that powered the whole city.
Uh-huh.
Now, I can't imagine him having anything more powerful than a V8 to have run that. And I don't know what the population would have been back then. But I was listening to you on my radio in the backyard earlier that I crank up. It's got a solar cell, but you can also crank it up. And I'm saying we ought to use people power. People wouldn't have to buy all this oil. They could sit home half the week and be riding a bike, putting power on the grid.
Uh-huh.
And using solar. And so the people running the show, they want to sell you oil,
hey, Sam.
gas.
Sam, lay off the medical marijuana, first of all. Number two, riding bicycles, that'll be a joy in February in Michigan. So let's sober up a little bit. And my last point is that Tesla perfected electricity, not Edison, which everybody knows, but Edison did invent the electric chair. There's a little something for you, Sam. I greatly appreciate you checking in, and you can do the same, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Energy density. There's a little topic for you to go Google today, energy density. That's why petroleum products are terrific. They're also terrific in, your cell phone, plastic, in the operating room, plastic, sterile. All of these things come from petroleum products. So before you get too far down your windmill rabbit hole, keep all of those things in mind. All right, shifting gears now to something a little bit lighter, and that is the state of football after the weekend. Our good friend Tim Staudt joining us now. Tim, welcome to the program.
Morning, Steve.
All right, so Michigan, I thought there it was again. Michigan was going to have heartbreak on the last play, but somehow Minnesota's interim coach, he kind of lost track of things there in the last 15 or 20 seconds, and Michigan holds on.
Well, Michigan's certainly been involved with two consecutive bizarre endings. There's no question about that. I doubt you'll see two games back-to-back anywhere that have endings that have the highs and lows that Michigan experienced, over the last couple of weeks, the last times they played. It's amazing how close these games get. And how little things can turn to either a win or a loss right at the very end. Without replay, that would have been a loss for Michigan. It was called a touchdown on the field. The replay clearly showed he hadn't got in. Replays of the news a great deal these days, and it is a lot again this year, and it's mostly in the college game, for better or for worse. But replays certainly helped Michigan, and yet that said, I don't know about you, but I thought there's no way from a half-yard line out with the setup the way this is that Minnesota's not going to win the game. But, you didn't think Michigan was going to lose to Michigan State either, and look how it turned out. I think that's part of the popularity, of course, of college football is it's just so difficult to predict the way some of these plays unfold, and for Michigan especially at the bitter end.
Yeah, and then the game was, was it 9 laterals at the end? Of course, there was a couple of points where the guy was probably down, and I watched one of the greatest endings in college football just Saturday as well. 9 laterals, 10, whatever it was, and incredible season so far with great endings.
Well, I didn't, when that play happened, I didn't see it because I was watching both Michigan. I was watching Notre Dame because Notre Dame was in a battle itself. So, there really wasn't a lot of appeal to the Miami-Duke game until the buzz started going around. It took 9 minutes to go through the replay, and then they had to go through it again. And look, replay's good and bad. I think that there's got to be, though, some kind of a way that replay gets centralized the way the pros do it. The pros have figured out a way, especially football, how to take all the consternation out of this stuff as best they can. I think the colleges are still novices is how do we take the technology of replay and make this work? I mean, now the NCAA is talking about changing the outcome of games after teams and people have left the stadium and you can go home and read about it in the paper. I don't know that that's necessarily the best way to do it, but obviously it's surprising to me, like it is everybody else, when you watch that play over and over, that there were some problems in the way that Miami got that win off that one play and that the replay people did not see that. I can understand the officials on the field maybe missing something and all that confusion, but that's what the replay people are there to do, is to unmask it all, and that just made it worse.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, so going forward, back to Michigan real quickly, quarterback controversy or not, Wilton Speight came in and had a couple of really dud series, but then came back with a short field, threw a strike into the end zone, wins the football game in the end, and the guy's like 6'6". He's a big unit, big arm.
Well, I think the controversy for Michigan is not on who the quarterback is as much as its overall effectiveness on offense with big games coming up. Michigan has got to get more offensive output. I mean, you can't have 240 yards against Michigan State. They were very fortunate to be in a position to win because their special teams and defense bailed them out. And then against Minnesota, I think, frankly, Minnesota just gift-wrapped it to them at the end of the game. But that said, I think Michigan's bigger issue, and one that everybody figured during the year was going to be an issue, especially, again, in big games, was how much offense productivity can they get. Now, they lost Devian Smith late in that game, and Rudock went out. Rudock is their guy this year. Next year, they obviously are going to want to get more productivity out of that position, and they knew that going in. I think that if I hear this correctly, he's supposed to be back for the Rutgers game this Saturday, and I think they can beat Rutgers with you playing quarterback, frankly. But then after that, those games get tricky because Indiana on the road and Penn State on the road before Ohio State at home, none of those are gimmies in my book whatsoever unless they can get some more offensive productivity all the way around.
Fair enough. I'm just a little hurt. You have no idea what my skill set is, Tim. You have no idea. Anyway.
You can beat Rutgers. Believe me, you take Michigan's guys around, you go quarterback in the big house Saturday, I'll bet you can beat Rutgers. You won't blow them out, but you might be able to beat them.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Always a pleasure.
Okay, buddy.